Hi, Ed. How are you?
Excellent, Douglas. How are you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate
Thrilled to
it.
be here.
I was reading over your bio, and we're going to be talking about email today. What exactly do you do, though? I was unclear as to what your job is.
We do email deliverability. And, the best way to describe what we do is describe the journey of an email. I don't know if you remember the old Schoolhouse Rock videos.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And my favorite one was "I'm Just a Bill."
Yes, I
I don't know
remember
if you
that one.
remember that one. Yeah, kind of
Yep.
classic one. Well, the email goes through a similar journey. And first you write the email and then you send it off to your email box provider or your mailbox provider. And then from the mailbox provider, it goes to a clearinghouse called an SMTP. And then they distribute that email out to your recipient's email box providers. At that point is where we come in because there's where they go through a series of checks before they deliver your email and decide where it is going to land, whether it's going to go into your inbox, whether it's going to go in a junk or spam folder or promotional folder, or it's maybe blocked, or it may end up in quarantine. So the first check that it goes through is it validates the signature to make sure your signature of the email matches up with the signature you have on file. The next thing that it does is it checks the content of the email, the subject line, the body copy, to make sure there aren't any spam trigger words there. Then it checks for the links to make sure the links are safe for somebody to click on. Then it checks the domain reputation to see if your domain is a safe domain. It looks at the history of the emails that you've sent to that mailbox provider in the past. What have people engaged with the emails in the past? Have they opened them? Have they clicked on them? Have they replied to them? Or did they put them in spam or not open them at all? Then finally, it looks at the reputation of the ESP or the email service provider that sent the email. And if that reputation isn't very good, then your email isn't going to get open. So we help to make sure that you pass all those checks so that your email gets delivered, open, read, and clicked.
Okay, so are you an email provider like you would provide me with an email address?
We're not an email provider. What we do is we advise you on maybe the different email providers that you may use that will ensure that your email actually gets delivered.
So you're like an email consultant company.
We are.
Okay, that's cool. I've never heard of that before. You mentioned something called a spam trigger word. What are
Yes.
typical spam trigger words?
Well, it's kind of there. It's a broad type of category of keywords, and they're mostly words that seem like selling keywords, if like a sale or discount or anything that would look to persuade somebody to take some action. So they're the type of words that are out there really kind of handcuff people that are trying to sell on email.
There's kind of a gray area between spam because we get lots of emails and occasionally good stuff ends up in the spam folder.
Right.
Um, so you have to sort of manually filter that stuff, right?
You do, and I'm certain there are emails that are sent to you that you never see because they were blocked, they were put in quarantine. And one of the reasons that that happens is because there are over there are over 300 billion emails sent every single day, which is a lot of email that
That's
goes out.
amazing. Yeah.
And 90% of those emails are spam, which is also incredible. But because of that high volume, and you think about it, every day there's over 10 billion, well, every hour there's over 10 billion emails that are sent out. And the email box providers have to try their best to keep their customers, their users safe from spam. So they use very aggressive filters to block out emails. And unfortunately, a lot of emails that are well intended, that are subscription based, end up in spam, and those that are prospecting type emails end up in spam. I'm sure there are people that have wanted to get on your show that sent you an email, and you never saw their email because it either ended up in the spam folder, maybe the promotional folder, or was just blocked.
Yeah, I'm sure we have. And then we've had people who were nice enough to try again and say, did you get my first email? And we said, no, never did.
Yeah.
That number is staggering, 300 billion emails a day. Do you know
Yes.
offhand how many letters the post office delivers in the United States in a day?
I don't, but I'm certain it's not anywhere close to 300
No,
billion. Probably not even that much in a year, I'm sure.
I would think not. Let's say that I wanted to procure your services. You want to say what you charge, or you want to say what you would do?
Yeah, well, what we charge kind of depends upon what somebody needs for us to do. What we do is we start with an email scan audit just to kind of get an idea of what type of issues they may be having, if they're having any deliverability issues. Most people just assume when they push send that the email is going to arrive, but with business email specifically, about 78% of those emails arrive, and that's on average. It can be as low as 47 or 49% of emails actually reaching the inbox. And on average, it's typically around 78%. So you have 22 to 51% of your emails that just aren't getting into the inbox. And you may not realize it. You may just think that, well, they're not responding to the email, or maybe it ended up in the promotional folder, but they just don't get there. They're blocked, or they're put in quarantine, or they go in the spam filter.
Okay, so one of your talking points here is ways to ensure your emails don't end up in quarantine or spam. How do we do that?
Well, the first thing that everyone needs to do, and again, this is primarily for business email. If it's a personal email, like a regular Gmail account or an Earthlink account or a Hotmail account, that's probably going to get there if it's not used for business purposes, if it's going from one friend to another. But if you're using business emails, the first thing that you need to do is to make sure your signatures are verified. And the signatures are the SPF and DKIM records. And those records have to be authenticated and configured properly, because that's the very first check that the email providers look at to make sure that those match up with what is on file. The next thing that you need to do is make sure your sender reputation is in good shape. So you should constantly be monitoring that. And if you're sending out, say, subscription type emails, you want to make sure that you're not doing broadcasts all the time, which is an easy way to get emails out to everybody on your list. A broadcast kind of looks like spam because it's all at once. All of a sudden, they see all this activity coming in from one email address, which is what spammers do. Instead, what you should be doing is creating workflows. And workflows, what they do is they follow along the customer's journey. So as people are at different points in their journey when they're going to be buying things, and the message would be different for each one of those people. The way I describe it is, if you are in front of somebody and you are trying to convince them or sell them to do something, you're not going to say the exact same thing to each person that you're talking to. Based on where they are, what kind of problems they have, you're going to be talking to them differently. So what you want to do is put people in different segments so that you are answering the questions that they want. And if you don't do that, if you keep giving the same pitch to everyone, some people it'll resonate with, but most people they're at a different point in their journey, and you probably only have 2, 3, 4 emails to hit them on that point. And if you don't, they're going to leave. They're going to tune you out. They're going to stop opening your emails. And if you keep sending them, they may mark them as spam, or the email provider will recognize that you're not opening up the emails, so they may put them in spam or a promotional folder, or even block them.
So it's probably good to have many templates, is what you're saying, right?
You should.
Instead of just one template that you'd send out to 10,000 people.
That's correct. You should.
Yeah.
And when we have worked with clients to do that, we've seen increases in open rates and sales as high as 1,500%, even 2,500% increases, just because we started segmenting the list and giving the right message to the right person at the right time.
I think a lot of people, or some people, have had the problem of their email account being hacked and somebody else using your email to spam people. And they usually start with your contact folder, yeah?
Yeah, there's a couple of different things that happen with email. The one that is the most common is spoofing, and there was an incident of spoofing in the news just recently. And the way that works is if you don't have your SPF and DKIM authentication you're properly authenticated and configured, then it's easy for someone to spoof your email. And I like to describe DKIM, SPF, and DMARC, which is another record that checks your verification, similar to a home security system. Imagine the SPF is like making sure that's verified is like locking your windows. DKIM is like locking your doors. But a motivated burglar is going to get into your house if you have your doors and windows locked. DMARC is the security system that if that is on, then if someone breaches your house, they break your windows or somehow pick your lock and they get in your home, the alarm goes off, the police are called, they show up and they haul off the robber before they do any harm. And that's what DMARC does. It catches all those people that are trying to hack or spoof your email before they can do any damage to your domain reputation.
How many hackers actually get caught to the point where, I mean, in person, as opposed to virtually caught? To me, virtually caught means they just shut them down, but nothing happens to the person, right?
Yeah, not many, and the reason for it is that spoofing is very easy to do. I'll give you an example. And my business partner, who is the lead analyst for one of the major ESPs, we were just talking on Skype, and he casually, just as we're talking, he asked me, what's a domain that you have that I haven't done any work on, that I haven't seen before? And I gave him the domain. It was edsbestadvice.com. And we're talking. I'm watching him. He's watching me. I don't notice that he's doing anything different. A couple minutes later, he said, check your email. And I check, and he had spoofed it. The email said, I just hacked your email account. I can do anything I want with it, and you didn't even know it. And it happened in less than 3 minutes.
Wow. Hello, hold on. Ed, hold on one second. We lost you there for a second. The whole thing went down and came back up. Did somebody hack?
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about hacking. Somebody ended up hacking.
That was weird.
Great example of somebody spoofing an account.
Yeah. Speaking of spoofing, the one I get frequently is the PayPal spoof. I'm sure a lot of people get that one. And
they do.
Yeah. The only way that you can really tell is that if PayPal sends you an email, an official one, they use your name. And the spoof ones always say, dear customer, dear client. Other than that, and then you got to check the sort of the return address, right? It always seems to be coming from Chechnya or someplace.
Yeah. Well, sometimes they can just grab your domain, like my business partner did mine. And if you're looking at the email address, you can't tell. The only other way to check for sure is you have to look at the source code, and there is where those SPF and DKIM records come into play. In the source code, you'll see whether or not those match. And it's hard to find. You have to kind of know what you're doing in order to find them. And if they don't match, then you know that it's spoofed. But if the user had DMARC properly set up, those emails would have never been sent. They would have been blocked before they ever would have reached your email address, because they would have signaled to your mailbox provider that these emails are questionable and they should not be delivered.
Well, every time one of those PayPal ones come, I actually send them back to PayPal. PayPal has that spoof at PayPal. Okay. And then I hit the spam button. But they still get through every once in a while. They come through.
They do. One of the things that I did after my business partner spoofed my email address, I asked him, well, how many businesses actually have this problem? And he said, at first he said 90%. And then he thought about it and he goes, nah, it's closer to 99%. So we started looking at Fortune 500 companies to see whether their emails had DMARC protection on them so that would have protected them against spoofing. And amazingly, the vast majority of them did not have DMARC. So they could easily be spoofed. But if you're a small business, the likelihood that a spammer will find you is pretty slim. But if you just happen to be on their to-do list, there's not much you can do. And there's billions of dollars lost by companies because of spoofing. There's people that you can get sued by the people that they sent the emails to because you didn't protect yourself. And I think on average, it's $58,000 per spoofing. It's cost small businesses, not big corporations, but small businesses that have had their emails spoofed.
Wow. That is a pretty staggering number.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're just a local business and you get hit with those kind of fines and lawsuits, it can be devastating.
Yeah, it could bankrupt you. We do have to wrap this up. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Do you have an email? Do you have a website? We're talking about email all day. I keep saying email. Do you have a website you want to give out?
Sure. It's email openrateoptimization.com.
That's a long one.
Yeah, yes.
Email. Okay, say that again.
Email openrateoptimization.com.
Email openrateoptimization.com. Okay. All right. Well, my guest is Ed Forteau. Thank you so much for coming on the show.